Hello everyone, welcome back to part 3 of What If Asta Was in the Naruto verse. If you guys do end up enjoying this part that I have for you today, please be sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really does help. So without further ado, let's dive in to the next part of this wonderful series, and I hope you guys do all enjoy it. Please be sure to leave what if suggestions in the comment section below, and let's dive into this right now. So we pick up the story right from where we left off last time, with everybody going home and going to sleep to prepare for the bell test that was going to take place on today. This is when we would see everyone get up out of their beds as they was all make their way to the training ground on time that Kakashi had specified for them all to arrive there. And as we see all of them arrive on time, planning to have this test at the specified time that was given to them by Kakashi, this is when we would see that just wasn't the case. Kakashi was nowhere to be found, and he wouldn't be anywhere to be found for about another 3 hours. Yes, that's right. Kakashi had everybody come early and wasn't even there on time. So everybody sit there, and eventually a conversation would start between Naruto, Sasuke, and Asta, along with Sakura chiming in because, well, they did all want to include Sakura now because they knew that if they were going to be a team, they would need to all have good chemistry and work together and get along. So even though it didn't really feel right to them, as their dynamic was usually just those three, and well, occasionally Rock Lee in there too, they weren't really used to like a fourth, but they would, especially with a girl on top of it. Like Sakura's also a girl, so it's like, well, I don't really know how I feel about adding you to it. At least Lee was a boy, but they would nonetheless start talking to Sakura, and they'd actually find out that this conversation wasn't half bad. As it continued to keep going on and on, it would eventually, well, 3 hours would pass, and that's when Kakashi would show up, and he would be like, yo, when everybody would turn around, you know, kind of like, oh yeah, that's why we were here. We were here to take a test with Kakashi, right? So everybody there was kind of like shocked because they were just so in depth into this conversation. They were talking about like what ranking do you think they would be able to get like within a year or something. They were having some random conversation that, you know, can go really deep. And, you know, it was one of those times like, and Kakashi had just showed up in the middle of it, and well, he was shocked that they were all just having a good conversation and wasn't actually really all that mad that he had taken so long, because for them, it was actually not all that bad because they actually got to talk and were actually having a good time before he showed up. But nonetheless, this is when Kakashi would tell them that, well, despite whatever you guys were just talking about, I need you guys to take the bell test because that's why you're actually here. And of course, everybody would nod their heads and say, yes, we understand, Sensei. So ultimately, after they all would, this is when they would all come to a much wider part of the training ground, a much wider area. And as they were all there, this is when Kakashi would begin to explain the rules of the bell test, that there would be 2 bells and that they had to get them. And whoever didn't get a bell would get sent back to the academy. But as soon as this would be finished, this is when Asta and Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura would all have individual questions that they wanted answered. First off, the first thing that was brought up was by Asta. He said, wait, why are there only 2 bells? Because there's like 3 of us, 4 of us, shouldn't there be more bells than that? And that was the same question that Naruto had. But Sasuke's question was more so, wait, what do you mean go back to the academy? We just graduated from there. We all had top remarks. Why would we ever go back there just because we didn't get some bells? That doesn't make any sense, as Sasuke would say, questioning Kakashi about that. Whereas Sakura would say something similar to Sasuke, going on about, wait, you can't just send us back to the academy. We just completed it, right? Like, that's something you can't do. It doesn't make any sense. We have the credentials to be beginning, so how could you just send us back to the academy like that? That makes no sense. Basically saying the same thing as Sasuke. And that's kind of how it went. Naruto said the same thing similar to Asta, and Sasuke and Sakura said something similar. And ultimately how Kakashi responded to each of them was, well, there are 2 bells because normally there aren't 4-man teams. There's normally 3-man teams. So the test still will stay the same as it usually is, with just 2 bells and 4 of you. But I will say this though, there might be some extra special way for one of you to pass if you can actually get the 2 bells. But this is when they would all look at each other confused, being completely and utterly in shock, not understanding what Kakashi was saying at all by any of his cryptic messaging. Ultimately, this is when everybody would say, all right, whatever, let's just start the test. I'm pretty sure we'll be able to figure it out, and maybe somehow we can all pass. That's when everybody would nod, listening to Asta, as we would then see Kakashi tell them that you will have to come in here with killing intent, and if you don't, you will not be able to pass this test. This is when we would then see the start of the bell test, as everyone there would go into the bushes and hide, because, well, it was basic academy. It was standard. It was what you should do. It was literally the standard of the academy. It's what you should do every single time. There is no chance that you should ever approach a jonin with beginning level tactics, but the best way to do it was straight out of the academy, book to book. What you should do is hide in the bushes, plan your attack, wait for an opening. So that's what everybody would do. They would all get in the bushes and they would all watch Kakashi being right next to each other, not masking their presence, Kakashi knowing exactly where they are the entire time. But this is when Asta, Naruto, will start to talk to Sasuke and Sakura and tell both of them that they should come up with a plan. This is when Sakura would nod her head and Sasuke would agree, not trying to solo Kakashi like he did in the main timeline, because frankly speaking, he is just more grounded in this timeline. He would tell them that, okay, whatever, what is your plan? What should we be doing? This is when Asta and Naruto would say, and simultaneously, that they don't have a plan just yet, but we can work together to form one. What are our strengths and what are our weaknesses? And we can use those to make up for the other person's bad things as a team. That's what a team should do. That's how a team works. And this is when Naruto would say that the best possible way we could go about this is probably by catching him off guard or doing something that he wouldn't expect us to do at the last second. So this is when they would all start to talk and get into a deep conversation like they were having before. That previous conversation before Kakashi came, actually allowing them to have this level of chemistry where they can actually come up with a plan on the fly this quick, this fast. Like, it's almost like breathing is how easy this conversation was going compared to how it was when they first got there. I mean, when they first got there, they never saw themselves as, oh, we're going to talk to Sakura and we're going to have fun talking to her, right? But no, this conversation that they were having, the time that Kakashi took to get there, actually allowed their chemistry to build, and that building block allows them to be able to form this plan that they would all feel pretty confident about, as they would all put their hands in a circle and then raise them, because they all think they have a chance at taking the two belts from Kakashi, not caring about the rules of who would get sent back depending on who got the two belts, simply due to the fact that if two of them got the pass, well, I think at this point they could all call each other friends. Maybe not Sakura being friends with them just yet, but honestly, Asta was planning on giving Sakura a belt if he got his hands on one, whereas Sasuke was not planning on doing that. And Naruto was planning on doing that because, well, Asta and Naruto, they're a lot, nicer. But the truth is that they were going to keep one of the belts for themselves and give only one to Sakura, which is kind of crazy considering Asta and Naruto are like brothers / best friends. And then also same thing with Sasuke as well. But I mean, Sasuke was thinking the same thing. So depending on who hits those bells, they're going to keep one. And just, I don't know who Sasuke was planning on giving one to, but he really hadn't thought about it all that much. But he would just be thinking about himself. Still a little selfish, but just way more open. And obviously having true friends in this timeline, or what he thinks is true friends, unlike he thought he had in the main timeline. So as we see this going on, this is when we would then see none other than Naruto run out of the bushes making tons of shadow clones. He would make 30 shadow clones, sending them all towards Kakashi. Kakashi knew Naruto could make shadow clones, so this would not shock him. And he hadn't come, but Kakashi had fornicated a moment, made a fake opening from the beginning to attempt to try to attack him so that the test could at least do something, so they could at least start or at least plan. He knows academy basis. He knows how they work. So he knew they were waiting for an opening that he was going to fabricate so they could come and attack him. But Naruto, here he was coming out of the bushes randomly when there was no opening given. It's important to keep in mind that Naruto was trained by Might Guy, and because of that, his taijutsu was way better than it was in the main timeline, and overall, he was just way stronger. This is when we would see Naruto in the back, the very back Naruto, amidst the 30 clones. He would be making the hand signs for the weasel sickle technique as he was preparing to fire a wind blade at Kakashi from behind. Kakashi could see the hand signs, and he already knew that Naruto was going for that jutsu because he had taught Naruto this very jutsu and helped him to refine it with the troubles he had with Kurama. So Kakashi knew the strength of the attack. He had still been training Naruto all up until this time, so he knew how powerful Naruto was down to the key. Naruto would be exactly as Kakashi thought, as he had no time to do any training of his own, and even if he did, what he learned, he wasn't some master like jutsu creator, right? So what would he even learn? Ultimately, with this being said, he did go to books, he did read scrolls, but learning jutsus wasn't as easy as it looked, especially when you didn't have someone right there to teach it to you, like Kakashi was doing with Naruto for all that time. But nonetheless, this is when we would see Naruto throw the jutsu, stowing the weasel sickle technique at Kakashi, the blade going towards him, as Kakashi would be going through the hordes of the 29 other clones that were coming at him, defeating pretty much all of them with ease. Despite Naruto having enhanced taijutsu in this timeline, this was a jonin Kakashi, the strongest jonin in the village for a reason, easily defeating the clones of Naruto despite having much greater taijutsu. This is when we would then see the weasel sickle blade coming towards Kakashi, about to hit him, as he would narrowly evade it. But this is exactly what Naruto had wanted to happen, as we would then see from the left, we would see Sakura come out of the bushes throwing 3 kunais at the bells. Kakashi would be shocked by this and realizing that this was a team attack, but he didn't really know on what scale. Did Sakura and Naruto decide to make a plan together? Was Sasuke and Asta involved in this? His brain like going as fast as it can to calculate what was going on in front of him. He didn't know how well they really worked together. Actually, this is when Kakashi would remember that there were a lot of days that Sasuke would train with Asta and Naruto, so he would almost be certain that if Naruto was moving, Sasuke and Asta would also move. And just as he was thinking this is when he would then see Asta from above, which has shocked him, as he didn't even see Asta get up there. He didn't even see him jump because he was so focused on Sakura throwing those 3 kunai at the bells. This is when we would see Kakashi weave out of the way of the 3 kunai that Sakura had thrown, as we would see Sasuke now come out the bushes, attacking Kakashi with his Uchiha taijutsu, as they would have a slight bout where Sasuke would impress Kakashi, impressing him very much because Sasuke was stronger than he was in the main timeline due to trying to keep up with Naruto and Asta, trying to prove that he was better than both of them. This led to him getting even stronger than he was then, and his taijutsu had been even better refined. Ultimately, this will lead to Kakashi being even more impressed than he was in the original timeline, and honestly wondering how a Genin could be this skilled at taijutsu, actually struggling to take Sasuke down, which was bad because Asta was still coming from overhead and he knew it. And just as he was remembering, just as he was thinking about Asta, this is when he would appear above Kakashi, right above him, with his hand signs out, going for a water stream jutsu. This would obviously come out of his hand going towards Kakashi, and Kakashi would kick Sasuke with enough force to push him back despite Sasuke blocking, which was great taijutsu from Sasuke, but still it was good enough for Kakashi to get some distance between them so he could get out of the way of Asta's jutsu. As we would see this jutsu crash into the ground, and it would start to go out. It would go out all over the wide area of the dirt and the ground, which is exactly what Asta wanted to happen. This is when we would then see Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke get into trees, as this is when we would see Asta activate lightning style, as he would make the hand signs for lightning ball, and of course he would launch them toward Kakashi. And Kakashi would see Asta throwing these at him, knowing this jutsu because he taught it to him. But this is when he would also notice exactly what Asta had been planning to do. Ultimately, by using the water stream jutsu, he would have made tons of water around the battlefield, making sure that it got in range of Kakashi, so that when he used lightning balls, the water would discharge with the balls, creating even more damage and electrocuting him. And just as Asta had predicted, this is exactly what happened. The discharge would get to Kakashi before the balls did, and it did shock him. He was taking damage. And of course, because Kakashi was stunned by the shock, he would get hit with the lightning bolts, taking even more damage. As this was happening, this is when we would then see Naruto make a shadow clone and throw it towards Kakashi, as we would see it kick him in the face. And as they would kick him in the face, Kakashi would fall to the ground. And as this would happen, this is when we would then see the jutsu subside, and we would see the water that was used with the lightning disperse due to it being eroded by the lightning. So as all this would happen, this is when we would then see Asta walk up to Kakashi, clip the bells off his side as Kakashi was knocked out from the high amount of voltage that had been used with all those lightning bolts Asta had created and the water discharging it. And ultimately, this is when they would see that Asta, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke had successfully taken the 2 bells and passed the bell test, or so they think they have passed the bell test. But while Kakashi was knocked out, this is when they would discuss who should get the 2 bells. As we would see hours pass, this is when we would eventually see Kakashi wake up, being tied to the stump, as the other 4 would be eating lunch, haven't still decided who was going to get the 2 belts and who would get to be on this team and go forward. Kakashi, seeing how well his team did teamwork, seeing how well they worked together, Kakashi would just tell them that the 2 bells was a farce from the beginning, and that the whole point of this test was for them to work together, for them to use teamwork, because if you don't use teamwork in the shinobi world, you are scum, less than scum even. So as they would hear this, they would take these lessons into heart, noting this and knowing that it was important for them to work together. And they could even see it after what they had just done, what would happen when they worked together. Before this test, they thought Sakura was a weak link because, well, in reality, she still was a weak link and she still really was weak. That wasn't wrong. But because they made up for her weakness of not being really good in combat or really good in all that stuff, she was still able to contribute to an overall win. So they would see what they could do when they included Sakura. They would see that and they know that they could take advantage of her when needed. Also, they would know that she would still need to get stronger, and now they knew that if they could actually make Sakura a better version of herself, they could even have an even greater chance of taking on any challenge, any mission, and coming out successful. So they would all look towards Sakura, nodding at each other, knowing they had to make her stronger, and they know that she wants to do the same anyways. Sakura, seeing this, would know exactly what was going through their heads, thinking that I'm going to have a really tough time on this team. But ultimately, this is when Kakashi would say, "You all pass, and now somebody come and get this stupid rope off of me." As Asta would come over there with a kunai and cut the rope off of Kakashi. As he would say, "You guys are good, and you can all go home." As Kakashi would leave, going to report to Hiruzen, telling him that Naruto and Asta's team had passed. After Kakashi would be gone to go do these deeds, this is when we would see the team decide to head to their respective households. We would see them walk Sakura back home again as they would continue their conversation from earlier about how fast it would take them to get to shooting or joning level in about a year. Ultimately, with them just not still being able to decide, because it was such an interesting and very deep conversation, which required a lot of different talking points, and it was all 4 of them talking. So this would last all the way until Sakura got home, all the way until Sasuke at the Uchiha compound, and it would still be going on with Naruto and just Asta as they would enter their apartment. But they would subside it when it came time to eat, as obviously since over the years Hiruzen had been giving them more and more money, and Naruto and Asta had been getting smarter and smarter, they decided to start cooking at home more. But they would still go to Tetsuchi's on Fridays because, well, they still wanted to pay the man back for all the kindness she showed them when they were stupid, dumb kids. So as we would see this all happen, this is when Naruto and Asta would go to sleep, being happy about who was on their team and happy about everything was going on so far. But as Asta would sleep and start to doze off, this is when he would see something, but not only see something, hear something. He would hear someone tell him, "So Asta, this is your life now. I can see you're having fun. That's all that matters. Don't forget about me. I'm still here, still helping. I'm still your brother." As Asta would wake up out of a hot sweat, wondering what that voice was, who that was, and who was talking to him. But Asta would not get these answers, at least not yet. But nonetheless, he could feel it, almost as if that person or whatever that was right next to him. But he didn't know why he could feel this or where this came from and what he was even talking about. But nonetheless, Asta would go to sleep after looking at Naruto and saying that he was, well off asleep. So ultimately, this would lead Asta to doing the same and going back to lay down, where he would not have any voices in his head, but nothing but a nice warm dream. But not just any nice dream, it would be a dream of a weird forest where he would see some random base, not really understanding what this was, but he felt comfortable there, like he had been there before, like he had seen it before, but he didn't really understand why. And ultimately, as Asta would have this dream, he would be peaceful and just sit on the grass as he'd be there in his dream, enjoying life to the fullest, not knowing why he was seeing or why he was having this dream or whose voice that was. But it was okay because Asta was Asta, and that he was going to do everything he set out to do. And honestly, this dream was, if anything, more peaceful than the voice he just heard in his head. So as we see Asta officially going to sleep, officially dozing off in this wonderful cozy dream, this is when we would see the next day come. As this is when we would see Team 7, Kakashi's team, go out and start doing D-rank missions for the next week, where we would see Team 7 complete the most D-rank missions of any team in the history of getting teams, simply due to the fact that they had 4 getting, which meant they got to do missions way faster. And when you have Asta, Naruto, and Sasuke on the same team, three of the most competent getting that have ever come out of the academy, and they're all on the same team, what could you possibly expect? Obviously, they would get stuff done at an efficiently high rate. So as all of this would be happening, this is when we would then see them get the most completed D-rank missions, like literally ever, out of any getting squad. But not only that, this is when we would see them start to train Sakura. They would start by trying to learn what her infinity is. As Kakashi would watch this, seeing how Asta and Naruto remembered how they did things, seeing how well they adapted to certain things, and they would find out, which Asta's light, that Sakura's affinity was water. She could use water. Not only that, they would find out that Sakura had a crazy amount of chakra control. It was insane. And this is when Naruto would tell Sakura that he was reading a book about medical ninja, and that's an incredible quality to have as a medical ninja. Sakura would hear that and think, medical ninja? Seriously, you think I could do that, Naruto? And Naruto would say, yeah, that's actually perfect for you. You could probably be a great medic for our team. There's nobody else here that can do that, so yeah, that'd be awesome. And he would also tell her about Lady Tsunade, the legendary Sanin, who he had read in the book, was capable of using this 100 ceilings technique that amplified her strength and used techniques to just naturally enhance her strength to the point where she can punch through buildings and walls with casual ease. Sakura hearing this and realizing how cool it could be to be a medical ninja, but actually think, yeah, Naruto, I think being a medical ninja would be awesome. Asta would tell Sakura that he as well had heard of Lady Tsunade, and obviously because he had been reading some of the same books that Naruto has. But this is when Asta would tell Sakura that he knew about all the legendary Sanin, Orochimaru and Jiraiya, and how Orochimaru was actually a traitor to the village, and how he was extremely dangerous and still out there on the loose, and that if anyone were ever to run into them, they should run on sight because he's extremely dangerous. Just saying all this as food for thought from the book he had read. And of course, Sasuke would say that, yeah, obviously you should run from the Sanin. They're no joke, as Sasuke had also learned of the Sanin. With this being said, this is when we would then see them teach Sakura, teach her how to use her kunai better, teach her how to fight better. As remember, Naruto and Sasuke and Asta were extremely good at taijutsu, that they would help Sakura to become better at it. But Kakashi would be able to do something that the other three could not, whereas Sasuke, Naruto, and Asta were good at taijutsu for their age, so it made it a lot easier for them to teach her than if Kakashi did, because, he's just, their sensei, which, yes, of course, Kakashi could teach Sakura, like, duh, that's his job, but you get what I'm saying. It'd be a lot easier to relate to because you have your friends teaching you rather than a teacher teaching it to you, if that makes sense, with some things, and this would be one of those things, especially considering Sakura was kind of like completely out of her field when it came to taijutsu. Nonetheless, this is when we would then see Kakashi start to teach Sakura Genjutsu, as it was something that Sasuke, Naruto, and Asta had never actually learned how to do. So they would all think that's a great idea, as Sasuke himself would note that once he gets his Sharingan, that's when he'll start to focus on Genjutsu. But for right now, focusing on ninjutsu and taijutsu was a lot better for him to do. So ultimately, as we would see this go on, this is when we would then see Kakashi begin to take Asta under his wing as well, noting that Asta was extremely impressive, but he had noted from a very young age that Asta said that he felt like he should be using some type of a sword or something. And Kakashi had trained Asta in how to use a kunai like it was a sword, but nothing too crazy, right? So obviously we would see Kakashi take a liking to Asta here right now during these weeks of doing missions. I mean, they're doing missions so fast, they have plenty of time to train. So Kakashi will begin teaching Asta how to use his kunai more and more effectively, teaching him how to use it like he had learned how to use it in the Anbu, giving him Anbu-like training, turning Asta into an absolute machine. As we would see this happening for him, this is when we would see Naruto beginning to learn new jutsu. Kakashi would start helping Naruto learn new wind jutsu, and obviously using the shadow clone trick that Naruto would have found out about much earlier in this timeline due to the fact that he's way smarter due to being with Asta, and Asta once again improving his life. This would be relatively easy for Naruto. He would learn 2 new wind jutsus during this time. Also, during this time, obviously, Sasuke wouldn't really be getting as much help from Kakashi as he was taking such a high interest in Asta. And not only that, he hadn't unlocked his Sharingan yet to really make Kakashi lock in on him. And because of that, Naruto was also getting a lot of attention from Kakashi as well. He wanted to teach him a bunch of jutsu. Ultimately, you can kind of say this is kind of favoritism, because it's kind of like, well, they all want Sakura to be better, so Kakashi would help Sakura. He's just used to training Asta and Naruto, so it's really that simple why he would be taking their side in teaching. And Sasuke just, once again, has not unlocked his Sharingan, and he looks like he's pretty good on his own right now. And honestly, that's how Sasuke's been throughout most of the story. Outside of the times he's trained with Naruto and Asta, he has kind of just been training by himself, learning more and more. So while this was happening, when they got free time, Sasuke would always make sure to bring scrolls from the Uchiha library so that he could learn more fire style, trying to learn the majestic destroyer flame like the one that Madara Uchiha could use. Obviously, if Sasuke learned how to use his jutsu, it would not be as potent or as powerful as Madara's, but he would still try to learn how to use it, because either way, it would still be way stronger than ordinary fireball. Also, trying to learn the great fireball jutsu, which he was making great stride in. As all this would be happening during this 1 week of doing deep rank missions and proving that they were the best getting team, this is when the week would come to an end, with everybody becoming much stronger as we see the week's end come to its conclusion. Ultimately, this is when we would then see, as that week would be over and the next week would start, this is when they would all walk in Monday to get more D-rank missions, as we would see Hiruzen talking to someone, talking to a man who had a bag on his back who looked like he was drunk off sake. And this would be none other than Tazuna, the bridge builder. And this is when we would see Hiruzen tell Team 7 that they will not be doing any more dig rank missions because, well, they had done pretty much all of the dig rank missions in the village, along with the other Genin teams doing dig rank missions. Well, there just really wasn't any more for anyone to do. They had been able to do the most that any Genin team had ever been able to do in such a short time. And frankly, he would start praising Team 7 for being able to accomplish this feat, where they would all start to shake and do like little shivers, feeling kind of happy that they were being complimented, obviously, except for Kakashi and Sasuke, as that just wasn't their type of vibe. But Naruto, Asta, and Sakura, they definitely would start like doing little movements and little twitches, kind of showing that they enjoy the praise from Hiruzen. But ultimately, after this was done, this is when we would then see Hiruzen tell them that this is when they're going to be getting their first secret mission to take Tazuna the bridge builder to the land of the waves, and that they will be going tomorrow morning. They will start their journey tomorrow morning. So pack your bags, because this is going to be your first time going outside of the village. This is when Sasuke, Naruto, Sakura, and Asta would all move their head toward Hiruzen, saying, "Yes, Okage," as they would all look toward Kakashi, saying, "Wow, this is going to be crazy." Kakashi would say, "Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. But don't get too excited. It's not going to be anything too dangerous. It's just a searing mission," Kakashi would say. As Tazuna would say, "Lord Third, is this seriously who you have for my protection?" Hearing all this, seeing all this, 4 kids, seriously? This is who you think can protect me going to the land of the waves? And this is when Hiruzen would say, "Yes, they should be more than capable of taking you to the land of the waves safely." He would assure him, saying that Asta, Naruto, Sasuke, and even Sakura had made greater strides as of recently, and that those 3 boys are extremely impressive and extremely talented for their age. Do not let their age fool you. Tazuna would nod his head and say, "All right, I guess," with sake coming out of his mouth, the smell of it coming out as he would speak his words, spitting them out as he would then walk off. This is when we would then see the night go on and pass as the day would come, as they would get up bright and early, everybody appearing in front of the gates of Konoha, as they would go with Tazuna out of the village for the very first time, this being an incredible event for all 4 of arc getting protagonists. As they would all head out of the village with Tazuna, they would start walking for hours, just talking about things that, you know, you would expect for like preteens to talk about, you know, especially in a ninja world. They talk about their kunais, and they would talk a lot about training because, well, frankly speaking, they had been doing a lot of that, and honestly, they would all be talking about ways to improve their training. But this wouldn't dull their senses, and Sakura's newly given senses, as again, remember, she is slightly better at taijutsu now, and not only that, she is also a pretty decent user of genjutsu, based off some like DC rank level jutsus, right, that she could have learned from Kakashi. But honestly, she had only really learned 2 of those, one D rank, one C rank, and the C rank one wasn't really that crazy, right, but it was pretty cool. And ultimately, she hadn't really learned how to do anything with water style, but she was hoping to learn how to do that, and that would be one of the main things she was talking about with the 3 of them. So as we would see this happen, this is when Kakashi would notice a puddle on the ground as they were going towards the land of the waves, looking at it, knowing exactly what the implication meant. But he thought he was the only one that noticed, but no, Asta, Naruto, and Sasuke clearly noticed that that was weird, especially considering there was no rain that had took place here in any time period in the last week. So they would all note and think in their heads, that's extremely weird, and that they need to be extremely cautious around that pool of water. Sakura would be so in-depth in what she was talking about. She would notice the water, and she would actually think it's kind of strange because it hadn't rained, but she wouldn't be like, oh, we need to get on high alert because of it, right? You know, and it doesn't really seem like her friends are, so she'd think it's probably cool. You know, she thinking they're friends, they're not really still too sure on that. Asta would consider her a friend, Naruto would, but Sasuke is the one who's not so sure about friend, right? You know, that's kind of his, you know, thing, right? He takes a while to let people in. But ultimately, this is when we would then see the 2 demon brothers come out of the water, not surprising anyone but Sakura and Tazuna. Sakura only being slightly surprised because she knew it was weird, but she didn't expect 2 people to be hiding inside of it, right? Like, you wouldn't expect that. But she is a shinobi, so she was supposed to. This is when we would then see them go right for Kakashi, but before they could even get there, they would get hit with a water stream jutsu that would hit both of them, sending them into the trees. Kakashi being shocked at how fast Asta had reacted to this. But not only him, as the 2 demon brothers would get sent to the trees, they would recover, getting up with their chains. But this is when we would see both Naruto and Sasuke right there. Naruto with 2 shadow clones in his side, hitting one of the demon brothers with a slight combo attack. 1 attack to the head, 1 fist to the head, and 2 to his solar plexus, knocking that demon brother out. Whereas the other one would be shocked at how fast Naruto had taken him down. But this is when we would see Sasuke getting onto him, hitting him with a kick in the face, throwing a roundhouse into his stomach, and then sweeping him to drop him to the ground. Him being knocked out from Sasuke's slight movement combo attack. As we would see this happen, the 2 demon brothers would be taken care of by Asta, Sasuke, and Naruto's quick acting. Kakashi not even needed to substitute in this timeline because they never actually got to him. So as we would see this happen, this is when we would then see Kakashi try to interrogate the demon brothers, but they weren't wanting to spill. So because they didn't want to spill, this would lead Kakashi to killing them and putting them in a stroll because, well, he just didn't have time to sit and play with them. Instead, he would hassle the guy they were supposed to be taking to the land of the waves, Tazuna, because he knew that they were not supposed to fight the demon brothers. They were tuning. So, like, why were 2 tunings attacking a sea rank mission? He would ask Tazuna, and Tazuna will respond with, well, you see, I mean, I could, well. And this is when he would then break down, start crying, and telling them that the land of the waves was in a serious pickle. They were being run dry by the ship magnet Gado, and that they didn't have any money, and that they were poor, and that he really needed to get back there for his grandson and for his daughter. And ultimately that they needed to make this bridge, because if they don't, well, nothing's going to get any better there. They would all look sad, even Kakashi looking a little less sluggish than he was before. This is when he would ask his team if they'd be willing to continue the mission. They would all nod their heads yes, agreeing to help Tazuna immediately, feeling his pain and sadness, and they wanted to help if they could help, and they wanted to continue the mission. But this is when Kakashi would tell them that if the 2 tunings, the demon brothers, were here, it's possible there could be even more up ahead, like even more dangerous shinobi. Are you sure you want to continue forward on this mission? And this is when he would say, yes. Asta would say yes, and that would lead the other three to nodding as they would all head off to land the waves. Ultimately, as they would continue on their journey, going for another 2 hours, them all being quiet, paying attention now, Sakura was determined to not get caught off guard again. She wanted to prove her usefulness, and even though she had noticed the puddle, she didn't expect it to be that big of a deal. So now she was keeping her senses, her P's and Q's up as much as she possibly could. Ultimately, as it all happened, this is when we would then see Akashi tell all of them to duck as a giant blade would come out of the forest, coming towards them as it would land in a tree. This is when we would then see Zabuza Momochi landing on his sword, the Kirikuru Bocho, one of the legendary blades of the mist. And we would see this being none other than the executioner's blade that Zabuza used. He would grab it, telling Kakashi to give him Tazuna and that he wouldn't have to massacre his whole Genin squad. But Kakashi would say, he can't do that, and that would lead to a battle between Zabuza and Kakashi. As they would battle, as they would have this incredible battle, this is when we would see all four of the Genins surround Tazuna to make sure nothing tried to hurt him, nothing could get in, nothing would try to kill him. But as they thought everything was safe, as they thought everything was all good and that nothing could hurt Tazuna, this is when Asta would hear from the slight of his left, something coming out of the mist, something coming out of the forest towards Tazuna. This is when Asta would react with his kunai being trained by Kakashi for that last week, exactly on time, as this would increase his senses, but not just increase his senses. There was something there, something that let Asta know this was coming, but he wouldn't know what this is, and he wouldn't be able to classify it. But he could feel that it was something more than just a sense. But nonetheless, he would go for it, using his kunai, cutting that thing in half, finding out that it was a Senbon sent towards Tazuna, aimed at his neck, trying to kill him. This is when we would then see a figure come out of the mist, this being none other than Haku, as Haku had been told by Zabuza while he engaged the copy ninja to go and kill the four brats that were going to try to protect Tazuna and ultimately complete their contract. Killing Tazuna would lead to them getting paid, and that is what Zabuza wanted, so he would tell Haku to kill Tazuna. So that is exactly what Haku would attempt to try to do, saying that he was sorry, that he didn't want to have to do this, but he had no choice, because if he didn't do it, well, Zabuza would be mad, and he was his tool, and he owed him his life, so he must lay it down for his master, as he would rush towards Sasuke, Sakura, Asta, and Naruto. All four of them beginning to battle Haku, and honestly speaking, Haku didn't expect these four getting to be this powerful, or four have this good chemistry, or four, another thing, be this skilled, this competent, and honestly not stupid at all. Because the minute Asta got near Haku, they got into a battle with Asta using his kunai just as Kakashi had told him to, using it perfectly just as he had predicted. But not only that, Asta was doing something else that he didn't quite understand. He didn't know what this was, but he was able to somewhat see or know what Haku was going to do before Haku could even do it, but he didn't know why he could do this, where it was coming from, or what was going on. But it was effective, and it was allowing him to take a slight edge over Haku, despite the fact that Haku was, in fact, an incredibly strong shinobi. But with Naruto and Sasuke's help, well, Haku was like on their back foot completely. They couldn't handle two other Genin level, like high Genin level opponents. Like, this was seriously too much for him. This is when we see Sakura in the back making her hand signs for her C-rank Genjutsu, aiming it towards Haku as it would connect with Haku, stunning Haku there for a total of about a minute before Haku would realize that they were under someone or one of their Genjutsus. Of course, this is all the time in the world that Asta, Sasuke, and Naruto would need, as they would all start making hand signs, going for jutsus, of course. This is when we would see Naruto go for a weasel sickle technique, going to shoot a wind blade, as that was still the best, most effective jutsu he had learned. Despite the other two wind jutsus he had learned, this was the most effective in combat. The other two were more like support wind jutsus, if I'm being honest with you, like supports, like they would be good with a combination or something, but nothing too crazy right now. And this is when we see Asta, who had been focusing more on his, Kenjutsu, or using like a blade, he would be more effective in that. So that was what he had been training on. So he would still have the same jujutsus, honestly, as he would now fire lightning bolts at the likes of Haku. And this is when we would see Sasuke make hand signs, but not for a fireball jutsu, although it seemed like that at first, but no, it was for the great fireball jutsu. Sasuke had mastered it just in time for this mission. As these 4 jutsus would be sent flying towards Haku, Haku would come out of the genjutsu just as he would get hit with these 4 jutsus and get sent flying backwards, being knocked out, getting sent through 3 different trees. Haku being defeated by Naruto, Asta, and Sasuke before they even got to the land of the waves, before they even had started the bridge, before they even learned like water walking and tree walking. As Asta, Naruto, and Sasuke still didn't even know that yet, and that would amplify their strength to maybe 2 times even, and they didn't even know that, and they had beaten Haku just from sheer teamwork. Them all looking at Sakura and telling her she did an incredible job, because without the genjutsu they never would have got that opening to use their jutsus so openly on their opponent. Sakura blushing, getting this praise, as she would be happy to hear it. But this is when they would all turn around to see Kakashi's battle with Zabuza, as now Zabuza, using the water person jutsu, had caught Kakashi in it. This ultimately leading to Kakashi being stuck in the water prison jutsu, telling his team to run. But this is when they would all say no. This is when we would see Naruto, Asta, and of course Sasuke come up with the same plan similar to the main timeline, where they would use the demon wind bomb, except including Asta in this timeline for it. This would go without a hitch, as we would then see it be a shadow clone, as they would throw 2 kunais towards the legs of Zabuza, throwing him off guard, and of course this leading to Kakashi being freed. With Kakashi freed, he was then able to trick Zabuza by using specific hand signs to throw him off guard. And ultimately, this would all culminate in Kakashi using a lightning blade to, of course, slam into Zabuza's torso to attempt to kill him. And unlike the main timeline, where Haku was there to come in and try to pretend like he was like a hunter from like the mist and all that good stuff, yeah, that wouldn't be able to happen here, because Haku was already defeated in some trees, being knocked out over there thanks to the likes of the other members, such as Sakura, Asta, Naruto, and of course Sasuke. They had effectively knocked out Haku already, so there was no Haku to come and save Zabuza. So he would get hit with this lightning blade in the chest right here, right now, and killed at that very moment. This is when the team would tell Kakashi that they had beaten another ninja who was working with Zabuza earlier while he was engaging Zabuza. And when Kakashi would hear this, he would say, wait, what? You guys beat another shinobi? One that was working with Zabuza? By working as a team? That's insane. I would have never imagined that teamwork could do that, but that's incredible. You guys truly are a wonderful team. As he would praise all of them for their incredible achievement, as he would go to Haku and ultimately seal Haku into a scroll to take back to the Hidden Leaf Village after they had completed their mission. Ultimately, this is when we would see the whole team arrive at Tasuna's house, where they would meet Inari and obviously Ayame. Or not Ayame, but his daughter. I'm not sure. I don't think I can remember her name. But they would meet her. And ultimately, after this would happen, this is when we would then see them eat your favorite meal. Just imagine your favorite meal, your favorite food. That is what they are eating right now. That is what she cooked, because she was a phenomenal cook. Ultimately, after all this was done, this is when we would see Kakashi working to refill his chakra reserves. But while he was doing that, this is when he would begin to teach Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto, and Asta water walking and tree walking, which would ultimately be very easy for Sakura, who had already started to learn how impressive it was to have an insane amount of chakra control, being able to do this in about 5 minutes, go up the tree, walk on the water, 2 minutes. That's how crazy Sakura's chakra control is, no joke. And this is when we would see Asta, who would be able to do this really easy too, which would shock Kakashi. And ultimately, this is when we would see Naruto and Sasuke struggling the most, but they would actually be able to go up the tree and walk in the water about the same time, continuing this plot line of them being ultimately extremely equal. As all this would be done, this is when we would then see them all start their individual training back up from what they were doing in Konoha. Also, they would be going to the bridge every day to make sure that Tazuna completed it effectively and efficiently. As the weeks would go on, with honestly no hitch, as 2 weeks would pass, as this was when we would see the third and final week come. This would be the week where we would see Gato appear with all his mercenaries and try to kill Talisman, try to destroy the bridge, try to be that evil guy who just uses money to get whatever he wanted. As he would tell them, kill everyone here, including the ninja. I guess that Zabuza and Haku failed. I never trusted them in the first place, he would say. Well, whatever. Just go ahead and kill them all. I'll pay you extra if you, I don't know, kill maybe that bridge builder's son and his daughter. Yeah. His grandson and his daughter. Yeah, do that for me. And this is when they would all rush in trying to prove that they were willing to get this money from Gato. Yeah, this wouldn't work at all, as Sasuke, Naruto, Asta, and Kakashi being Astro Shinobi and they're just being mercenaries would get absolutely demolished by them. If Zabuza, who was on death's door with a kunai in his mouth, could take down all of these mercenaries and ultimately defeat Gato, I don't really know what to tell you. These four, my bad, because Kakashi would also help, would absolutely destroy these mercenaries and would easily defeat Gato. Ultimately, after all this is said and done, they would leave Gato for the village to decide what happens to him for all the crappy stuff that he had done to them over this time period, as the village would straight up kill Gato here and now. And as this would happen, this is when we would then see the villagers praising Kakashi, praising Team 7 for what they had done. So, as this would all be done, Tazuna would have tears in his eyes as he would thank them from the demon's first arts, and Inari would also come up to Naruto and say, well, I guess heroes might actually exist. And this is when they would all say, yeah, sure, maybe. And after all this would happen, this is when we would then see the bridge be completed after another 3 days, as Tazuna would name it the Great Naruto Bridge, still naming it that, despite the fact that Team 7 had been the collective total of why they had been able to achieve everything they were able to achieve. Honestly, the only reason Tazuna chose to name it the Great Naruto Bridge is because when he asked the team what they should name it, they all just said they should just name it the Great Naruto Bridge. And Naruto would say, wait, why me? Why my name? And this is when Sasuke and Asta would say, well, easy. You want the acknowledgement. You want to be the Hokage to be acknowledged. That's always been that's your whole point. That's your whole goal. That's your whole dream, right? So maybe you should start here. So they would tell him that this was the greatest place to do it, and Kakashi would agree with this, and Sakura really wouldn't care what it was called, and she liked Naruto in this timeline too, so she would say, well, yeah, Naruto Bridge it is. So Tazuna would say, all right, and he would call it the Great Naruto Bridge, and that's ultimately how I got that name, because Team 7 advocated that that's what it should be called, because Naruto still wanted acknowledgement, even though he had Asta in his lair. And now, Team 7 as a whole. So as we would see this all happen, this is when they would start to head back to the Lee Village as heroes, as they were already being talked about in Konoha on their way back. Ultimately, they would enter the village, and Kakashi would take his team to Hiruzen to report. And this is when he would tell them that was no C-rank mission. And Hiruzen would nod his head and say, yes, I'm aware. That was probably something like an A-rank mission. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll pay you guys for an A-rank mission. As he would then give all of them the split of what an A-rank mission would be for the 5 of them. As this would happen, this is when Kakashi would dismiss his team, but not before telling them about the tuning exams and asking them if they wanted to participate, doing that little test he had done in the main timeline that they would all easily pass. After this would happen, this is when he would nod his head and say, all right, I'll enter you guys for the tuning exams. And this is when we would see all of them heading home, all going their different ways. Nobody getting walked home because honestly, it was literally like, the sun is out. It's a pretty nice day, and they're in the village where they all live. I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty safe doing all this. And honestly, they were all strong enough to take care of themselves against any thugs or anything that tried to take them on. Honestly, the only reason they took Sakura home in the first place was to be nice and because they knew she wasn't that strong. But now they're pretty confident Sakura can get home on her own. But they're friends. So, sometimes they might want to talk, so that's the only time that might actually still happen, but nonetheless, not here, as they were all tired from their mission and were ready to go home. So, as they would all enter their houses, they would eat, talk to Sakura would talk to talk to her parents, not her parents, because she still had parents, whereas Sasuke would just go home, eat, and lay down, thinking about how everything went for this mission and how everything was going to go in the future. And ultimately, this is where we see Asta and Naruto do the exact same, with Asta telling Naruto about that dream he had like a couple of weeks ago at this point. And Naruto, telling him that, well, I'm sure it's nothing and that he shouldn't worry about it, as Asta and Naruto would basically get in the bed early as well, just like Sasuke, because, well, they were tired and honestly they had nothing and really nothing to talk about, right? Like, for Asta and Naruto was concerned, they didn't have anything too crazy to talk about, nothing really to discuss in depth. I mean, Asta told Naruto that, but that's all he really had to say, and Naruto's response was, well, his response, and ultimately he would just accept that and, well, lay his head down. So as it all happened, this is when we would see the four, eventually Sakura going to sleep in her own household, telling her mom and dad good night, as she would go to sleep as well, as we would see our four main characters go to sleep as they would start their next week off training for the Chunin exams. But that is where we are going to be ending off part 3 to What If Asta Was in the Naruto verse, where next time we'll be covering the Chunin exams and maybe the Konoha Crush. I'm not too sure. I don't know how long the Chunin exams are going to be, but yeah, we'll definitely cover the Konoha Crush and the Chunin exams eventually, but I'm not sure if we'll cover them next part. But yeah, guys, so we covered the bell test and we covered the Land of Waves in this part. So I hope you guys all did enjoy this part. I hope you all did like it and enjoy it, and I will catch you guys in the next What If, because I've kept you guys here long enough. Ian and What Ifs out. All right, guys, God bless. Deuces. See you next time.